County Board of Education special session for January 7th, 2021 is in session. Ms. Bates, would you mind doing the invocation for us?
Dear Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for bringing us here together this evening. I want to thank you for allowing us to come and be able to make decisions under your will. And I pray that you would open our hearts and our minds to be able to listen and to respond gracefully. And I pray that you would be with those families who have been affected by COVID, whether it be directly disease or unable to visit family members due to the regulations in place right now, or just unable in general to be able to spend time with family the way they would like. I pray that you would be with those people and help comfort them and bring them peace. In Jesus' name, amen.
I recommend approval of the agenda dated January 7th, 2021.
Motion.
I have a motion and second for the recommendation of approval of the agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Informational items, informational item number A, letter A, student services update, Dr. Ballard and Mr. Trader.
I just wanted to start by just saying how it is an honor and a blessing to serve alongside of just outstanding leaders and of the responsibilities or areas of focus in innovation and equity. And then also Mr. Trawick is going to follow behind me to share an overview of student services and provide a few exciting updates that we're excited to share. Just in reference to equity and innovation. Reference to equity and innovation, I'm overseeing once it's approved, the facilitation and monitoring of the consent order, as well as just examining educational equity across the system at large. Also guiding the implementation process of the district policies and administrative regulations relating to educational equity. Also providing and coordinating professional learning opportunities in reference to diversity and equity affairs for our staff across the system. And the other thing that I want to share is that we currently have over 100 community partners across the district. And when I calculated, since the week of March 15th, approximately 43 weeks, every single week, at least one community partner, if not more, has reached out and said, how can we support the Madison County school system? And so I definitely want to acknowledge our community partners, and it's a privilege to work alongside of them as well. Also, you'll hear more and more in the months to come about the accreditation review process. And so I'm the point of contact for that. And the accreditation agency is COGNIA, formerly Advanced Ed. And then also I get to work alongside of Mr. Trawick, overseeing student services and our school counselors. And before Mr. Trawick comes, I just want to share that he has just done an outstanding job leading student services. You can imagine the needs of students prior to the pandemic, and then during the pandemic, he and his team have pivoted very well to provide outstanding services to our students. Also, our school counselors, I've been meeting with them this week and next week individually, just catching up with them, and they're juggling so many different responsibilities, all while ensuring that student wellness is going well at their schools. And so just very proud of student services and our school counselors. Last but not least, just a very special thank you to Northrop Grumman. They donated recently masks and bags to our students. And so this is just another example of community partnership and meeting needs when they arrive here in Madison County. So that's just a very brief overview of equity and innovation. And then Mr. Trawick is going to come to share a little bit more about student services.
Thank you, Dr. Ballard, and I apologize, we had some technical difficulties there. But she did have a couple of slides that covered those things as well. All right. And then here's the thank you for all the community partners. And I just want to echo what Dr. Ballard said, that we have done, we've been able to do some tremendous work this semester and the first semester And it's largely in part because of the people that we work with and our community partners. So I just want to echo that and say thank you to them as well. From my office, the main things I'm just going to quickly highlight for you guys. I really have focused hard on attendance this semester, working with our kids who are working remotely and that sort of thing, trying to make sure that we keep up with that for multiple purposes, but mainly to make sure that we have an accountability for our kids, to make sure that we know where they are, know that they're engaged and actively engaged in the learning environment, whether it's in the classroom or whether it's at home. We're also heavily focusing on getting ready to focus on enrollment coming up for this coming school year, for the 21-22 school year. That'll be kicking off in just a couple of months. And so we were starting preparations for that as well. I'm also in charge of all the discipline for the district in terms of disciplinary hearings and enforcing the code of conduct, making sure that we are abiding by the Madison County School Board policies and making sure that we're upholding those and carrying those out appropriately. On that note, the code of conduct, I'll begin working on that coming up here in the next month or so, getting ready to make those adjustments and any changes that need to be made for next school year as well. Another one of the major issues that I work with, or not issues rather, but I guess you would even call it a blessing that I get to work with, are families that find themselves in unfortunate situations that end up on our McKinney-Bento homeless list, and having to make sure that we work to make sure that the needs of the kids are met and making sure that they have what they need in order to be successful in the classroom. That has been a major focus for us this year, as we have seen an increase in numbers on our McKinney-Bento list, and we do feel like, I'll mention that on the next slide, we do feel like that there has been some impact because of COVID on the homelessness, whether it be families have lost their jobs, that sort of thing. That has been a focus on us and focus for us this year. And then the next one there that I want to highlight too is the mental health services. That has been a probably one of the most important pieces of our work this first semester, is making sure that our kids, that the mental health their overall mental health is being observed, making sure that we understand how our kids are feeling, making sure that we understand how our kids are doing in the classroom and outside the classroom. And again, it's been a real challenge with our kids working from home. It's been very difficult. And so we've put a couple things in place to kind of help out with that. Just a couple of the recent updates, again, kind of talking about the mental health. We have the mental health services coordinator position, which that's the first of its kind for Madison County Schools. We've been very blessed to have someone of the caliber of Portia Hines come in and work alongside our counselors and alongside with Dr. Ballard, overseeing the counselors there, making sure that we are, implementing the best mental health practices that we can for our students and for our faculty as well. She's the liaison between Madison County Schools and Wellstone, which is the agreement that you guys have with the Mental Health Center for Kids in Huntsville, and they work to provide mental health counseling to our students on campus and off campus as well. That position is strictly designed, or mainly designed, to provide support to our guidance counselors, and they have been they've been working very closely together. I know that they were in meetings today with Ms. Hines, going through different things and just kind of getting an update and just kind of getting a check-in on how things are going in their schools. One of the things that Ms. Hines was able to bring back to our district, from a conference that she went to, is Rhythm Map. And Rhythm Map is a social emotional learning tool. It has been it has provided an opportunity for us to kind of get what's called a tempo score for our schools, get an idea of what our schools are, how our schools are feeling on an emotional level, on an energy level, how they're feeling, their physical bodies are feeling for the day. And the students have an opportunity to just take like a quick 90-second survey. They click on emojis to kind of identify how they feel for the day in 5 different categories. And we kicked it off this week rather. I keep wanting to say this semester, but we're still in the first semester. So we kicked it off this week, and so far we've got 12 schools that are actively using Rhythm Map, and we're working on getting that system or that service implemented in all the schools. And we'll have that through the end of this year and next year as well. Again, I mentioned the homelessness there. We have seen an increase. We feel like we have seen an increase there, and I do think it's partly due to COVID. We're currently serving 150 students that are on the McKinney-Vento homeless list. We've had 171 already in the district that have received services, with 21 of those students already moving on, whether it be going back to their home school, whether it be going to another school in the area, or sometimes, they'll end up moving to out of state to stay with other relatives while they try to get things in order. And so there's a lot of transiency is what I'm trying to say with our homeless students. And so we do our best to try to provide as much stability for them as possible and help make sure that they have all the tools and resources that they need to be successful. And the last thing I wanted to mention is we've tried to push our partnership for a drug-free community partnership with them, try to push that relationship with them and making sure that we've got a firm grasp and a handle on the tobacco and vaping prevention strategies that we can use in the classroom. Right now, New Hope High School, Madison County Elementary, Riverton Intermediate, and Meridianville Middle School are working with Partnership for a Drug-Free Community as they complete. Normally, they would go into the classrooms, they would go into the school and personally conduct lessons and activities. They're doing all those virtually this year, and so far everything has gone well in the ones that they've been able to implement. And we do feel like this has a direct impact on our students in the classrooms, the ones that have had issues with vaping in the past. We want to make sure they understand the harmful effects of that and make sure that they know that that's something that leads to other issues, and we want to try to catch it as early as possible. So again, they're working with 5th, 6th, and 7th graders, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders rather, across in Madison County Elementary, Riverton Intermediate, and Meridianville, and then also working with some high schoolers there at New Hope. So those are just some of the highlights that we wanted to point out from student services, echoing again what Dr. Ballard said, working with our community partners. We've been busy this semester and trying to make sure that everybody's got what they need. And it's going to continue on this semester here, and we just want to make sure that everybody knows that we're there for them. If they have any questions, if they have any issues, you just got to give us a call. Any questions you guys have for us?
Do you see an acceleration of, I know this last year with COVID, do you see an acceleration with the vaping issue in our district, or?
Honestly, Mr. Curry, I'm going to say I've seen a decrease in those issues. Now, granted, our discipline issues overall have significantly decreased partly because of hybrid, because of remote learners, that sort of thing. But even last year, though, we started to see a decrease. I worked with Wendy Reeves with Partnership for a Drug-Free Community last year quite a bit. They went into a couple different schools where we were seeing some higher numbers of issues there. And in those schools in particular where they were working in, I've not seen those same problems this year. But to say overall, it's kind of hard to quantify just because of the statistics with the kids, I guess the numbers of students being on campus, it's a little bit harder to measure that. Any other questions?
We thank you, Mr. Treywick and Dr. Ballard, for laying out the scope and breadth of what you guys do. A lot of the stuff we don't see on a day-to-day basis, but we certainly appreciate it. So thank you both.
Item B, Madison County Virtual Academy, grade configuration update, Mrs. Solomon.
I think I've got a presentation there, I'm pulling it up just real quick. If you may recall, I think it was 2 years ago, we came to the board and asked that we expand the grade configuration for the Madison County Virtual Academy when we initially started that as a program before it became a school. It was designed to support grades 7 through 12. And as we made the decision to move it into its own call center, so that it would become a school, we had asked the board to include grades 3 through 6 in that grade configuration. This year, after we had made that request, the state legislature passed the Alabama Literacy Act, which impacts grades K through 3. And the Literacy Act has created some challenges in a virtual environment that we just don't feel like 3rd grade it's appropriate for them to be served through the virtual academy. I met with Ms. Shoemate, the virtual academy administrator, along with their lead elementary teacher, And we had a pretty lengthy discussion about this, and, we were all in agreement that, next year, changing this grade configuration so that it's just grades 4 through 12 at the virtual academy would be the right thing to do. One of the big requirements that the Literacy Act has that creates a unique challenge for the virtual academy is the requirement that we have to provide a core curriculum that's aligned to the science of reading. So for it to be aligned to the science of reading, it has to encompass phonemic awareness, phonics, alphabetic principle, vocabulary comprehension, and a couple of other things. So, a very comprehensive reading program. To our knowledge, there's not a comprehensive reading program in a digital format that we could use through, that we could use through a virtual environment. So, it's going to already be problematic to meet the requirements of the law curriculum-wise. But then on top of that, as we move into the Literacy Act, if kids move into 3rd grade and they are showing signs of having a consistent deficiency, we're going to have to offer daily, explicit, direct instruction through small group with them that really is intended to be face-to-face, and not done through like a Google Meet or something that we're having to do during this pandemic environment. If we're going to require kids to come into school every day, it sort of defeats the purpose of having a virtual, offering them a virtual education. So kind of that dual, or we really don't have a curriculum that meets the requirements of the law to offer in that virtual environment, and then offering the type of intervention that the law requires. Again, it's just going to create some challenges that, just to be honest, we don't think are going to meet the needs of our kids. And there's not really a way around that. So at our next board meeting, we would be bringing forward the request to change that policy to, instead of grades 3 through 12 for our virtual academy, it'd be grades 4 through 12 for our virtual academy. So questions about that? Or
How many 3rd graders do you have now?
19? Yeah.
So aside from that issue, that was going okay.
Yeah. With something like that, it goes well until it doesn't go well, until you have students that have significant reading deficiencies or needs. But again, the curriculum part of it, we know now, we knew it's a challenge, not just at the virtual academy, but it's a challenge offering a digital curriculum that aligns to the science of reading. We don't have that in our school. No, nobody across the state, nobody has that right now. Like I said, to our knowledge, that program doesn't exist. So we're doing the best that we can to supplement that, as both at our local schools and through the virtual academy. The teachers are working hard. It's no fault of theirs. They're doing everything I think that should be expected of them, but really to follow the intent of the law, a virtual environment is going to, like I said, I don't know how anybody would do it and follow the law, to be honest.
So those 3rd graders this year, are they doing well?
I would say they're doing at least comparable to any 3rd grader within our district, so, they're doing fine, but we know that once we get on the other side of this pandemic,
Right.
and a lot of the, I guess I would say the leeway, the law really starts to kick in while it's official. It's a law now. We're bound to, to do our best to adhere to it. the retention part of it starts next year, that piece. So when kids go into third grade next year, if they don't meet testing requirements and stuff, then it would roll into, potentially retaining them and stuff. And just again, knowing we don't want to get in that situation with kids is we want to avoid that as much as we possibly can. Knowing that our current second graders, a lot of them are already being challenged, learning in a virtual environment, or, we're in a hybrid situation right now where they're virtual part of the week, face-to-face part of the week. We know that it's not the best situation. It's the best situation that we've got, but we want it to be better, give them the best opportunity. So
If you had a third grader that was really advanced and they wanted to do virtual because they didn't want to be bored, can they test up to fourth grade and just go that way? Or are they just?
well, we do have procedures for grade advancement in our district. That's a local school decision. They would, talk with their local school administrator and work through the protocol. We're taking a look at that.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Summer. Item C, COVID update. But before I go into that, I just want to, if you didn't know, and board members, you may not have known this, but January is Board Member Appreciation Month. So those little bags that you all had at your desk, on behalf of Madison County School, we just wanted to show you a small token of our appreciation. Thank you for what you do. And over time, we say that, during the pandemic, it's hard, it's tough for everyone. And you all are no exception. It's been tough as well, fielding emails, phone calls, and those type of things. And so I just want to just say how that we appreciate you. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for the sacrifices that you make to lead our district and to make decisions that are beneficial for our people, our students as a whole, our teachers, our faculty and staff members. So just wanted to do that before we get into a COVID update. I just wanted to let you know how much we appreciate you. Thank you for what you do. So what I wanted to do is I just kind of wanted to touch bases on just a couple of things. And the COVID update actually is basically to lead into the last piece of what we really, really wanted to talk about. And in just a moment, I'm going to ask Mr. Cupid to come up, and he's going to talk about our COVID leave plan that we've been working on. We want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our people. We want this pandemic again. There's some trying times and situations and things of that nature with quarantines and things of that nature. So we want to make sure that we're working through those processes. I do want to encourage everyone that we have our dashboard, and we try to keep that updated weekly to make sure that we're transparent with our numbers so that everyone can kind of see exactly where we are. Making decisions within our district in terms of school-based and district-based, they're not easy decisions. We're utilizing multiple sources of data, multiple pieces of information. We're consulting multiple professionals inside our district and outside of our district, healthcare professionals, to make the decisions as we move and transition into whatever level that we're in. Of course, right now we're in level 2, which is hybrid. We will be continuing to monitor our numbers. We'll monitor the numbers within our district. We'll monitor numbers school-wide, school-based. Hybrid has afforded us an opportunity to lower the number of individuals we have in our classes. We have it set up where Group 1 comes on Mondays and Tuesdays, virtual on Wednesday, and we have Group 2 on Thursdays and Fridays. And what this does, it gives us the opportunity to social distance. It gives us opportunity to not allow students to transfer or to Group 1 won't be quarantined because of group 2, because we have them where they're actually spaced apart, things of that nature, split. So we're monitoring our staff numbers, we're monitoring student numbers, just to make sure that that we're keeping our schools as safe, our people as safe as possible. We're also looking at our community numbers, which are exceptionally high right now, of course. There is also a fear of after holiday uptick in numbers. And so we're monitoring those upticks to make sure that we are keeping our people as safe as possible. I want to, more than anything, to make sure that we keep our kids and our students in school, but I want to make sure that our people are safe. I want to make sure our students are safe and healthy in the process. And that is the reason why we have our COVID plan in place, to make sure that we're actually doing just those particular things. We will be actually looking at our numbers multiple times a day to make decisions. And the decisions that we make, we're trying to make them well enough in advance to give parents, to give the community, to give our teachers an opportunity to plan, to make decisions on how they're going to traverse through the decisions that we're making. What we are looking at very soon, we'll actually make a decision to in terms of the level that we're in, we'll remain in level 2, we'll move back to level 1. But again, our goal is for our students to be in school. And hybrid right now, with the level of spread, gives us the opportunity to keep our schools, our kids in some type of face-to-face with teachers, but at the same time, give us the opportunity to create an environment that is as safe as possible by socially distancing our students as much as possible. Because again, we've got to make sure that our teachers are safe and sound in our classroom and healthy, as well as our students, because we can't rightfully teach our students if our faculty members and our staff members are quarantined or sick. Right now, we currently have one school that has moved to remote, and we're constantly monitoring those numbers. And as soon as we can get that school back into a place where we have the personnel in place, we'll actually move them back into whatever level that our district is in, which right now is in hybrid level 2. One of the things that we have been planning and working through is when our faculty and our staff members are quarantined, we want to make sure that we're able to supply the needs that they have while we're still supplying the needs of our students. So this actual plan that we worked on, our COVID leave plan for our district. And I do want to thank my staff, and everyone's been great, especially Ken Kendrick and his team. They've been working diligently, working through making sure that we have the legal pieces, making sure that we're covering as best as possible all of our faculty and our staff members as we continue to traverse through COVID-19 and the frequent quarantines that come as a result of being in a pandemic. So I'm going to ask Mr. Cubic if he would come up and if he could go into a little bit of detail of what that COVID plan is. There are 4 options in our COVID leave plan that we feel like it's fair and hopefully will meet the needs of our faculty and our staff members. Each one of you have a folder, and it has the plan in there and the documents and form. And Mr. Cubic is going to touch on that right now.
Good evening, board. Can you understand me with the mask on? Okay. First of all, Mr. Perkins, thank you for the accolades, but I'd be remiss to say that my staff was fantastic in helping with this, as well as the superintendent's executive team, my colleagues and my peers, as well as Ms. Thompson, we spent several hours together making sure these documents were legally correct, protect the board, as well as protect our employees. So with that, let me go over the plan that we have to propose to you this evening. It is the Madison County Schools Plan. the federal legislation has basically, under the old FFCRA Act, they mandated that you do certain things, unfunded things, but they mandated it. What they did with their extension was to provide an option. It's no longer mandated, it is expired, but the option is a choice that you could continue. Instead of going under and adopting FFCRA and moving forward with that, we felt it was better in the board's interest and our employees' interest to go ahead and design our own plan to address this. So this is the plan for Madison County Schools that superintendent has proposed. It is, there are 4 options. So if an individual gets COVID or is asked to quarantine or directed to quarantine or isolate due to COVID, the first option is, can they do 70% of their job responsibilities at home? And can the principal attest to the fact that they can do 70% or more of their job responsibilities at home? If that option is available, then what we do at that point is we move them to the work from home. There is a work from home authorization form that we have. In that form, the employee completes, it's authorized, and then they begin working from home at that point for the duration of the 10 days, okay, which is the quarantine period or the positive test. If they cannot, if option A is not available, then we progress down to option B. Did this event, whether it was an exposure to a student or an exposure to a colleague, did it happen at school? Is there a probability that this is school related? If it is, then we go to what is called job-related quarantine or isolation. That is option B. And in this part, there's this individual form for option B. The nurse attests that this is related to school. So this one is related to they're contacted or exposed at the work environment. Okay, so that's option B. If it is not related to them working in their job responsibilities in the school system and at school, at that point, it drops down to option C. And option C is a non-job related quarantine or isolation. And on this one, this is if someone tests positive for COVID or is directed to quarantine because of something outside. They get it at a family function, could be multiple. They get it shopping at Walmart. I mean, it's just a plethora of things that are outside the school job, okay? And on this one, what we are doing is if they have not used the sick days that were mandated prior to under FFCRA, prior to December 31st, if they had not used those, then what we're going to do is allow them to use those days during this time period. If those days are already expired because they've exhausted them, at that point, they'll have to no longer be in option C. They'll drop down to option D, which is they will have to use their own leave. And of course, option C also has its own set of required documents, which they must provide certification from a medical, an authorized medical person, doctor, nurse practitioner, that instructs them to either that they're positive for COVID or that they have to quarantine. So that's required at that point. So there's 4 options, A, B, C, and D, and we progress down the list depending on what the situation is for that particular employee.
Have we already assessed the jobs that 70% or more can be done from home? Do you already have that assessment, or is that just kind of a judgment call at the school?
Primarily, sir, if you look at a school building, our positions that are support-based will not be eligible for this. We can't have CMP workers, custodians, instructional aides. Those people are in the building. So it is going to be primarily certified staff members, but even in some of our conversations, the assistant principals need to be in the buildings. You know, there are special ed self-contained teachers that are gonna have students in the building. So it's going to have to be on an individual basis as well as the individual school. For instance, if a teacher is teaching in a hybrid mode, and they're teaching virtually, but there also is maybe 5 kids attending the classroom that they're in, and they get it, and the principal can create a way, you remember, and I appreciate, you'll see tonight on the personnel agenda, the COVID relief aides that you guys approved previously. We've hired several of them on this next agenda tonight, personnel, and I really appreciate you all doing that. If those people can be utilized as substitutes in those rooms, then, and we can have the teacher teaching remotely and still doing their job or his job, because that, we really need them doing that, teaching our kids, then if it can be attested that 70% can be done and the principal can arrange the schedule to take care of the few children that are maybe coming to school, then we can work within those parameters. So it's gonna pretty much be certified, but it is gonna be individualized and certified too. It can't be a carte blanche, all these people do or all these people don't.
Gotcha.
Is there nothing we can do for support?
There isn't, because their job, a CMP person can't work making food at home and bringing it into the building, or the custodian can't be cleaning from home. So their jobs are linked solely to whatever the 70% is.
So
But
are
option B does actually relieve, some of that support personnel. So option B, you apply for administrative leave, which actually helps, out support personnel.
Okay. Oh, I apologize, because I thought you were just referring to the work from home part. Yes, Mr. Perkins is exactly correct. That actually the B part is a big part for the support employee, if you really think about it, because if they are in the cafeteria, or let's say a custodian gets exposed to a child in the hall and develops, COVID from that, then they would fall in the B category, and the board would be giving them administrative leave so that they can be at home and take care of themselves. So they'd still be compensated, and there would be no leave charged to them.
Okay, I must have misunderstood you the first go around.
Yeah, I apologize, sir. I misunderstood your question.
No, you're good, I'm sorry.
What about the situation where you really don't know where you got it?
That would be C or D.
So the custodian in the hall would have to be, how would you know that?
Our nurses are doing what's called a COVID tracker log, and they're actually identifying in that log whether students have it or peers or colleagues and who's been contacted with them. So on the form, and if you look at after section option B, the form there, it has a section in there where the nurse states, whether it was an exposure to a student or an exposure to a colleague at work. And then if, for instance, perfect example, we have a classroom and we find out that, a custodian was she's a custodian issue. The custodian is in contact with a colleague who had COVID, and the nurses link that custodian to that colleague, and they've been told to quarantine. They will go on the B leave, and they will start a 10-day window, okay? And that 10-day window does include weekends, so it's a 10-day countdown. They can return on the 11th day. Let's say on day 6, they were exposed on day 1. On day 6, they actually developed COVID. At that point, what we're gonna let them do, they're going to refile that form, and they're gonna file it under, now they're testing positive for COVID, and we're gonna start a new 10-day window for them. They're not limited to that 10-day. We're going to take care of our employees that are exposed to this in the building, that it can be linked, and there's a high probability that is actually tied to their job duty in the building, and that's where they got it.
And up to this point, most of the individuals we've been able to identify, where they've actually come from, whether it was outside the school system or inside.
There's one other really important piece that I want you guys to be aware of our plan. Our plan starts out with expectations, okay? And the expectations are, the Madison County School System expects our employees to follow all safety protocols for their own health and the health of their students and their colleagues. If non-compliance is determined, then disciplinary action may be administered. We want to take care of our employees, we do, but we want them following our safety protocols to keep themselves, their families, our students, and their colleagues safe as well. And we felt it was important to put this in here in case we can definitively say there's non-compliance, so that something can be, and the administrator will come from whatever the discussion with the administrative team, but we just thought that was very important that we had set some expectations in there at the front end.
And I know we mentioned positive cases, but this covers quarantines as well as positive cases.
Do we have a sense of what we're gonna do about the vaccine and quarantine? How does that gonna work? Because that kind of fits into this about how to keep from getting it.
Well, as of right now, accessing the vaccine is a Alabama Department of Health, APH. They'll make those determinations. And once that determination of when faculty and staff can actually take part, then we will actually, look at how that will impact us or how we'll move with that. Because we don't really know exactly when that window of time is, or even how that will be administered to the school system. But we know that it is coming. We've had discussions. Sorry.
Any more discussion? Thank you, Mr. Cuban.
Thanks, Mr. Cuban.
Yes, sir. Administrative items.
All right, administrative items. Item A, I recommend approval of the agreement with Redstone Federal Credit Union Satellite School Branch at Hazel Grant High School and the Redstone Affinity Cards as submitted. Question?
Second.
I have a motion and a second for a recommendation for approval of the agreement with Redstone Federal Credit Union Satellite School Branch at Hazel Green High School and at Redstone Affinity Cards. Any discussion?
Like in here, we have the answers to ones. Like the baby is like. There's the dates.
Yeah, some of the dates are based on when we are able to actively put it into place. So we can't fill those dates in just yet because there's some processes in terms of prepping. So the school has to be prepped in terms of where they're actually located. It's not a cost to our district at all.
And the fee, the organization shall receive blank for every qualifying transaction. Do you know that?
Oh, that's, there is a percentage that our district actually receives from the affinity cards as the affinity cards, when they're used, a certain amount is given back to us. I don't know exactly what that is, how much that is, but we actually get a percentage, a value that goes back to our district.
But I guess it needs to be.
Yes, yeah, all of that is still in.
And Cindy, you reviewed this?
I have reviewed this, actually, I worked several months ago with their attorney, there was some language that we need for approval. This is the draft that we negotiated. It's also, very similar, it's not exactly the same as what Madison did.
Yes.
I'm excited to see it at Hazel Green High School. I think it's a good opportunity for the students at Hazel Green. It's a good opportunity to practice those financial management capabilities directly in the school. So I am certainly excited to see that. I know I've seen them at Hartsville and other schools around North Alabama. So to see this come to our district is very exciting. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item B, I recommend approval of the change order to Sparkman Middle School as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for approval of the change orders, Sparkman Middle School. Any discussion? If there is none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item C, I recommend approval of the Madison County School COVID leave plan through March 31st, 2021.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for approval of the Madison County School System COVID leave plan through March 31st, 2021. Is there any discussion?
Yes, we'll address that. We'll address that date on that.
I'd like to address a question, Ms. Thompson. In your legal opinion, this covers our licensed personnel as far as making those decisions, as the nursing forms and that sort of thing.
We worked on that terminology in the different forms and had the terminology you're using along with the APH toolkit for, schools.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Item D, I recommend approval of the contracts and services as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for approval of contracts for services. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Item E, I recommend approval of the personnel items as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for approval of personnel items. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item F, I recommend approval of the supplemental contracts as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for approval of supplemental contracts as submitted. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This concludes our special session for this evening. We have to go into an executive session for a student disciplinary hearing. So I have a motion to adjourn this special session so we can go into executive session.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to conclude this special session. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All right, so we will, do you want to stay in here on, or do you want to? We'll need to, clear this room. Thank you, everybody. That concludes our special session. We'll be in here for